Imagine this. You're walking out of your neighborhood grocery store, arms full of food for the week, when a stranger's kid rushes up and says, "My mom says you have to give me those bags." You freeze, confused. Before you can even respond, his mother storms over, face red, eyes sharp, voice cutting through the warm Georgia air. Her name? Karen. Not just any Karen. This one chairs the neighborhood hoe, and she's convinced she has authority over everyone, everywhere. Now picture this. When you calmly refuse, she doesn't just scold you. She calls the cops, claiming a dangerous black man is threatening her son. She expects flashing lights, sirens, backup for her ego. But here's the twist Karen didn't see coming. The man she's trying to paint as a criminal? He's not just any neighbor. He's Commander Marcus Wright, head of the county police. And this is the story of how a petty act of entitlement spiraled into a community-wide reckoning about dignity, power, and justice. The late afternoon sun spilled across the quiet streets of Willow Creek Estates. It was one of those carefully manicured suburban neighborhoods where lawns were trimmed within an inch of their lives, mailboxes matched by design, and the whole ruled like a shadow government. Marcus Wright walked back from the store on foot. He preferred it that way. After 20 years in uniform, he appreciated silence when he could find it. His broad shoulders carried not just two heavy grocery bags, but the kind of calm authority that made most people instinctively step aside. Today, though, calm wasn't on the menu. As he turned the corner past the ornamental fountain, a boy, maybe 12, blonde hair sticking up from under a baseball cap, ran right up to him. The kid jabbed a finger toward the paper bags in Marcus's arms. "My mom says those are ours," the boy announced. Marcus blinked. "Excuse me?" Before the boy could clarify, the sharp click of wedge heels echoed from the sidewalk. Out marched Karen, sunglasses perched on her head, clipboard in one hand, lips pursed in permanent disapproval. The self-proclaimed queen of Willow Creek. "There you are," she snapped, pointing to Marcus's groceries. "Those are ours. Hand them over." Marcus straightened, shifting the bags slightly. "Ma'am, I bought these at Jefferson's Market. With my money. They're not yours." Karen's nostrils flared. "Don't lie. My son told me you took them from him." "I didn't take anything," Marcus said evenly. "He just walked up to me a second ago." Karen's voice rose, loud enough for passing neighbors to hear. "I don't care what story you're spinning. You think you can come in here and intimidate us? Not in this neighborhood." The boy tugged at her sleeve. "Mom, I just..." "Quiet," she hissed at him. Then she whipped out her phone. "I'm calling the police." Marcus let out a slow breath. He'd seen this scene before. Too many times. A white neighbor weaponizing fear, dialing 911 like it was her personal concierge service. He knew exactly how this script usually ended for men who looked like him. But Karen had no idea whose script she was stepping into. As her thumb jabbed the screen, Marcus stared at her, calm but firm. He thought about speaking up, about telling her who he was, but something in him hesitated. He wanted to see just how far she'd go. Her voice rang out into the phone. "Yes, I need police immediately. There's a large black man threatening me and my son. He stole our groceries." "Yes, right now." The boy's eyes widened. He looked from Marcus to his mother, clearly uncomfortable. "Mom, he didn't." Karen silenced him again, snapping her fingers like he was an unruly dog. Marcus shifted his weight, his jaw tight. In the distance, he could already hear the faint wail of sirens. And that was when he made his decision. He wouldn't walk away. He wouldn't diffuse it quietly. Not this time. He'd let this play out, and let Karen learn exactly who she had just dragged into her theater of lies. The sirens grew louder, bouncing off the cul-de-sacs. Neighbors peeked out of windows, drawn to the sound like moths to a flame. Karen stood taller, triumphant. "You're about to regret ever stepping foot in Willow Creek." Marcus glanced at her, then at the boy shifting uncomfortably beside her. He said nothing. He simply waited. The cruiser screeched to a stop. 2 officers stepped out, hands already hovering near their belts. Karen rushed toward them, crocodile tears swelling up. Officers, thank God you're here. Arrest him before he hurts someone. The officer's eyes flicked to Marcus, then widened. Recognition dawned instantly. Commander Wright? One stammered. Karen froze mid-gesture, her smile faltering. Marcus finally spoke, voice steady as stone. Officers, I think Mrs. Green here has some explaining to do. And with that, the air around them shifted. The power in the scene flipped like a switch. Karen's jaw went slack. Her son shuffled nervously. The neighbors leaned closer from their porches. Marcus wasn't just a black man with groceries anymore. He was the law. And Karen had just called the law on the law. For a long moment, the cul-de-sac was silent except for the faint hum of the cruiser's engines. Karen's proud smile had cracked into something uncertain, her fingers still frozen midpoint toward Marcus. Her son fidgeted, shuffling his sneakers against the concrete, wishing the ground would swallow him whole. The two officers exchanged quick glances, then looked back at their commander. Both of them were young, rookies by the look of their tense shoulders. Their voices stumbled over the weight of the situation. Sir, is everything okay here? Marcus didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. Authority rolled off him in steady waves. Why don't you tell me what Mrs. Green reported? The first officer swallowed hard. She said, she said you threatened her and her child, and that you stole their groceries. A ripple of murmurs passed through the small crowd of neighbors now gathering. Some held iced teas. Some clutched dogs on leashes, all watching with the rapt attention of people who sensed a scandal blooming. Marcus arched one brow. Threatened? Stole groceries? He held up the paper bags. These were purchased at Jefferson's Market. Want to see the receipt? Karen tried to recover, her voice shrill. You don't have to prove anything to him. He's lying. He must have tricked the cashier. Officers, why are you just standing there? Arrest him. But the officers weren't moving. Their hands had dropped away from their belts. One even looked embarrassed. Mrs. Green, Marcus said, finally turning to her, his voice calm but edged with steel. Do you know who I am? Her lips trembled. You're some neighbor who just moved in without proper approval. Marcus let out a quiet laugh, humorless. I've lived here for 3 years. I chair the county's community policing program, and my name is Commander Marcus Wright. It hit the crowd like a thunderclap. Neighbors gasped. One woman covered her mouth, another whispered, He's the commander? Karen's son tugged at her sleeve, whispering frantically, Mom, he's the police boss? Karen snapped at him through gritted teeth. Quiet, Nathan. But her voice wavered. For the first time, her confidence slipped. Marcus's backstory. As the murmurs continued, Marcus's mind flicked back to why he had chosen Willow Creek Estates in the first place. It wasn't just the quiet streets or the decent schools. It was because he wanted his teenage daughter, Alana, to grow up in a place that looked safe. He'd served in neighborhoods where patrol cars were more common than ice cream trucks. He wanted better for her. But he'd known from day one that moving into an HOA-controlled suburb wasn't without its risks. The stares, the whispered questions about how he could afford it, the way Karen, the whole chair, seemed to find excuses to drop warnings in his mailbox. Over his lawn length, his driveway, even the color of his recycling bin lid. Marcus had let it slide. He'd been trained to de-escalate, to pick his battles. But now, Karen had crossed a line. The first confrontation, Karen tried again, her voice trembling but still clinging to arrogance. This is outrageous. He's making it up. Officers, can't you see what's happening? He's intimidating me right now. The younger of the two officers cleared his throat. Ma'am, with respect, Commander Wright is our superior officer. We know him. Karen's face drained of color. Superior. Yes, ma'am. The officer continued, his tone tightening. He's our commanding officer, and we have never known him to intimidate or steal from anyone. The neighbors' murmurs grew louder. Phones were out now. Someone was live streaming. Another neighbor whispered loudly enough for others to hear. She just tried to have the police arrest the police commander. Marcus turned slightly, addressing not just Karen, but the whole semicircle of neighbors now watching. "This," he said, gesturing calmly, "is exactly why calls like hers are dangerous. False reports, exaggerations, using fear as a weapon." Karen sputtered. "That's not what this is. I was protecting my son." Her boy spoke up suddenly, blurting the truth she didn't want heard. "No, Mom. I just asked him for his groceries. I didn't mean." Karen's eyes went wide with panic. "Nathan, enough." But it was too late. The neighbors had heard it. A few shook their heads, muttering, "Unbelievable. And all this over groceries?" Marcus crouched slightly so he was eye level with the boy. His voice softened. "It's not your fault, son. Asking for something isn't wrong, but lying about people? That's where things get dangerous. You understand?" The boy nodded quickly, shame clouding his face. Marcus straightened and fixed Karen with a gaze that could cut glass. "You've wasted police resources. You've tried to frame me in front of my community. And you've put your own son in the middle of a mess you created." Karen's lip quivered. For the first time, she didn't look like the queen of the cul-de-sac. She looked like someone who had just realized her throne was made of paper. Escalating tension. But Marcus wasn't done. "Officers," he said firmly, "I want a formal record made of this call. False report of a crime. Harassment, targeting a neighbor under false pretenses." The officers shifted, glancing at each other. One whispered, "Are we really doing this?" The other nodded grimly. Karen gasped, You can't do this to me. I'm the HOA chair." The crowd's murmurs grew louder, tinged with disbelief and a hint of schadenfreude. Phones angled closer, recording every second. Marcus didn't flinch. "The HOA doesn't put you above the law, Mrs. Green. In fact, your position makes your actions worse. Abuse of authority, harassment, intimidation." Karen's hand shook as she clutched her clipboard like a lifeline. Her son tugged harder at her arm, whispering, "Mom, please, stop." But Karen's pride roared louder than her common sense. "You'll regret this. I'll take it to the HOA board. I'll file complaints. You don't belong here." Marcus's jaw tightened. His voice was measured, but it cut like steel. "I belong anywhere dignity, fairness, and truth matter." "Do you?" The neighbors murmured again, a ripple of approval this time. Karen's cheeks flushed crimson under the weight of their stares. The following morning, the sun rose over Willow Creek Estates like nothing had happened. Sprinklers clicked on in synchronized arcs. Dogs barked behind white picket fences, and the smell of fresh coffee drifted down manicured driveways. But beneath that calm surface, tension buzzed like a live wire. Karen Green hadn't slept. She paced her pristine kitchen all night, replaying the humiliation again and again. Neighbors filming, officers siding with Marcus, her son blurting out the truth. By dawn, her fury had hardened into resolve. She wouldn't let this Commander Wright destroy her authority. She had ruled Willow Creek for years, bending every homeowner to her will, and she wasn't about to let him become the one exception. By 9 o'clock, she had already sent a mass email to the HOA board. Subject: Urgent dangerous incident with new neighbor. Last night, one of our residents displayed threatening behavior toward myself and my son. The individual, Marcus Wright, is attempting to intimidate neighbors and disrupt the harmony of our community. As HOA chair, I am calling for an emergency board meeting tonight to discuss enforcement actions. We cannot allow this behavior to spread unchecked." She hit send with a triumphant jab of her finger. Marcus at home. Meanwhile, in a quieter corner of the neighborhood, Marcus sat at his kitchen table, sipping black coffee as he flipped through the morning news. His daughter, Alana, breezed in with her backpack slung over one shoulder, earbuds dangling. "Dad, everybody at school's gonna be talking about that video," she said, dropping her phone on the counter. "It's already all over TikTok. They're calling her Ho Karen." Marcus rubbed his temple. "Wonderful. Just what we need. Our neighborhood becoming an internet punchline." Alana grinned despite herself. "But you looked cool. Like, calm but scary. You didn't even yell." "That's not the kind of reputation I'm after," Marcus replied. though a faint smile tugged at his lips. But thanks, kiddo. He glanced at the screen. The clip already had thousands of views. Karen shrieking, Marcus standing calm, officers deferential. It played like a made-for-TV drama. The comments were brutal. She really called the cops on the cops. Imagine trying whole rules on a police commander. This is how false calls end. Exposed. But Marcus knew viral fame cut both ways. If Karen felt cornered, she'd fight back harder. The emergency HOA meeting. That evening, Willow Creek's clubhouse parking lot overflowed with SUVs and sedans. Residents filed into the meeting hall, buzzing with gossip, phones pinged with fresh memes. Karen sat at the head table, posture rigid, pearls glinting in the fluorescent light. To her left and right, board members, older couples who usually nodded along to whatever she proposed, shifted uneasily, clearly aware of the elephant in the room. She banged her gavel. Order. Order, please. We are here to address a grave incident threatening the safety of our community. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Karen launched into her performance. Last night, I was harassed and intimidated by a resident. He made aggressive moves toward my son and myself, and when I attempted to protect us, he twisted the situation to make me look like the villain. He even coerced police officers into siding with him. This is not the behavior we want in Willow Creek. Gasps and headshakes from her supporters punctuated her words. But others frowned, arms crossed. A neighbor, Mrs. Delgado, stood. With respect, Karen, we all saw the videos. That's not what happened. He didn't lay a hand on you. Karen's smile tightened. Mrs. Delgado, videos can be edited. Online gossip should not dictate community policy. At that moment, the double doors swung open. Marcus walked in. His presence filled the room instantly. His uniform jacket draped over one arm. His eyes calm but unyielding. The murmurs turned to whispers. He came. Karen's composure cracked for a second before she banged the gavel again. Commander Wright, this is a closed session. Marcus strode to the microphone. If my name is on the agenda, then I have a right to hear it. The room went still. Marcus speaks. He placed his grocery receipt on the podium, then lifted his eyes to the board. I won't take much of your time. Yesterday, I was falsely accused of stealing and threatening a child. Mrs. Green called 911 and exaggerated her story to officers. That's not just a waste of resources. It's dangerous. False reports put lives at risk. They put people who look like me at risk. The room shifted uncomfortably. People avoided his eyes, but many nodded slowly. Karen tried to cut in. That's not true. You're twisting. Marcus raised a hand slightly, commanding silence. I've spent my career protecting this county. I moved here because I wanted a safe home for my daughter. I wanted to be part of a community, not a spectacle. But if this hoe believes harassment and lies are acceptable, then maybe this isn't the community it claims to be. The weight of his words pressed into every corner of the room. Seeds of division. A man in the back stood. Karen, I've lived here 10 years. You fined me for flower pots, for leaving my trash can out a day late, for painting my shutters beige instead of approved tan. Now you're trying to fine a police commander for buying groceries? This is out of hand. Applause broke out. Not loud, but enough to rattle Karen. Another neighbor added, we're tired of the power trips. Last night showed the truth. Karen's face turned crimson. This is insubordination. You people don't understand the dangers. If we let him get away with this, the whole neighborhood will unravel. Marcus's voice cut through. The only thing unraveling here, Mrs. Green, is the idea that you're untouchable. The board looked shaken. A couple whispered furiously. The meeting ended without a vote, but the damage was clear. Karen's grip on the hoe was slipping. Backlash. By the next day, the fallout hit harder. Neighbors who once feared Karen stopped nodding politely when she passed. A few even ignored her emails. Someone taped a screenshot of the viral video to the clubhouse door with the caption, "Ho, Karen strikes again." But Karen wasn't done. She doubled down, firing off cease and desist letters, threatening lawsuits, demanding Marcus be removed from the neighborhood for creating hostility. And late one evening, as Marcus returned home, He found something chilling in his mailbox. Notice of violation, property standards. Commander Wright, you are in violation of HOA codes 4.3, 6.7, and 7.2 regarding lawn height, driveway stains, and improper trash bin placement. You are hereby fined $500 with escalating penalties for noncompliance. Marcus held the letter, jaw tightening. He knew exactly what this was, retaliation. And this time, he wasn't going to let Karen hide behind paperwork. Marcus stood on his porch under the glow of the setting sun, holding the notice of violation in his hands. His jaw flexed, the words blurring for a moment as the anger pulsed behind his calm expression. Lawn height, driveway stains, trash bin placement, petty, fabricated charges. Exactly the kind of harassment he'd seen Karen inflict on others. But this time, it wasn't just another resident. This time, she was coming for him. He walked inside, laid the letter carefully on the kitchen table, and exhaled. His daughter, Alana, looked up from her homework. "What's wrong?" Marcus slid the paper toward her. She read it, then let out a sharp laugh. "They're finding you? For grass?" "Not just grass," Marcus said. "Apparently my trash can is a criminal too." Alana frowned. "They're scared of you. She's scared of you. That's why she's trying this." Marcus nodded slowly. She was right. But it was more than fear. It was about power. Karen had built her little empire on intimidation, on convincing people she had authority no one could challenge. If Marcus let this slide, she'd tighten her grip even harder. No, it was time to shift the ground beneath her. Gathering allies. The next day, Marcus quietly began reaching out to neighbors who had clapped, whispered, or nodded during the whole meeting. One by one, people opened their doors and their stories spilled out. Mr. Khan, the retired engineer, showed Marcus a stack of violation notices for things as absurd as a child's bike left outside. Mrs. Delgado produced photos of her husband repainting shutters 3 times to match Karen's approved shade. A young couple admitted they had almost sold their home because of relentless harassment. "She finds people until they're scared to breathe," Mrs. Delgado said bitterly. "But if her friends do it, no problem." Double standards everywhere. Marcus listened, taking notes, collecting receipts, emails, violation slips. It was more than pettiness now. It was a pattern, one that looked a lot like abuse of authority. When he walked back to his car that afternoon, his folder was thick. And for the first time, neighbors looked at him not just as a target, but as someone who might finally stand up to Karen. Karen's desperation. Meanwhile, Karen sat in her office, blinds drawn. Marcus glanced at the folder of evidence sitting on his desk. He hadn't even submitted his notes yet, but apparently, Karen's own neighbors had beaten him to it. Her empire wasn't just cracking, it was collapsing. "Understood," Marcus said evenly. "I'll bring what I have." Confrontation at the grocery store, but fate had a way of stirring the pot. The very next afternoon, Marcus ran into Karen at Jefferson's Market. She was by the deli counter, voice raised at a young clerk about the thickness of turkey slices. The moment she saw Marcus, her eyes narrowed into slits. She abandoned her cart and marched toward him. "You think you've won, don't you?" she spat, dragging my name through the mud, turning neighbors against me. "Well, let me tell you something, Commander. You're not untouchable. I'll find a way to bring you down." Marcus didn't flinch. He leaned on his cart, voice calm but sharp. "Mrs. Green, what you call bringing me down is just accountability. If you're so worried about people seeing the truth, maybe you should have thought about that before making false reports." Her face reddened, hands trembling. You don't belong here. You never did." A silence fell around them. Other shoppers froze mid-aisle, listening. A teenage stock boy looked horrified. Marcus's voice dropped low, each word deliberate. "I belong wherever justice belongs. And right now, that's right here." Karen's jaw worked like she wanted to retort, but no words came. She spun on her heel, cart rattling, muttering under her breath. But Marcus saw it in her eyes, the fear, not just of losing power, of being exposed. The bombshell. That night, the county's legal team called again. "Commander Wright, you need to see this," the investigator said. "We've obtained preliminary records from the HOA's accounts. It looks like thousands of dollars in fines were collected over the years, but a large chunk never made it into the association's bank account." Marcus froze. "You're saying someone's been siphoning funds, and the trail leads right back to Mrs. Karen Green?" It was the bombshell, the turning point. The battle wasn't just about groceries, or false reports, or petty law violations anymore. It was about corruption, about theft, about an empire Karen had built on intimidation and lies. And now, evidence showed she'd lined her own pockets in the process. Marcus leaned back in his chair, the weight of it settling over him. This wasn't just neighborhood drama anymore. This was criminal. And Karen had no idea the storm about to crash down on her. The hum of cicadas filled the warm Georgia evening as Marcus closed his blinds and spread papers across the kitchen table. Bank statements, violation letters, emails forwarded from neighbors. His evidence pile grew taller by the hour. Each document was another brick in the case forming against Karen Green. But this wasn't just about her harassment anymore. It was about the HOA's books, the missing funds, and the years of intimidation disguised as community standards. For Marcus, this was no longer a personal vendetta. It was justice. Allies assembled. Neighbors began showing up at Marcus's house uninvited, carrying manila folders, screenshots, and stories. Mrs. Delgado, holding a worn envelope, confessed, "I paid nearly $900 in noise violation fines last year. For birthday parties. I asked where the money went. Never got an answer." Mr. Khan added grimly, "She made me pay $1,200 for repainting my shutters. But when I asked for receipts of where the money went," silence. A young couple, the Harrisons, dropped a stack of emails onto Marcus's table. "She threatened foreclosure on us," the wife whispered. "We almost lost our home over a cracked driveway." Marcus nodded, carefully collecting every document. He looked around at the weary faces in his living room. People who had lived in fear of fines, letters, and threats until now. "You've all been silenced for too long," he told them. "But this stops here. If we stand together, she can't bully us anymore." The room buzzed with a cautious kind of hope. For years, they'd whispered complaints behind closed doors. Now, they were stepping into the light. Karen's counterattack. Meanwhile, in her two-story colonial with perfectly trimmed hedges, Karen was spiraling. Her once adoring board members had grown distant. Neighbors no longer smiled at her on morning walks. And worst of all, the whole treasurer had stopped answering her calls. She knew Marcus was behind it. She felt him closing in. That night, she typed furiously at her laptop, drafting a newsletter to the entire neighborhood. "Dear Willow Creek residents, I must warn you that Commander Wright is attempting to undermine our community by spreading lies and stirring division. He is weaponizing his position to intimidate us into compliance. As your whole chair, I urge you to remain united against this dangerous influence." She hit send and sat back, chest heaving. But as the email blasted out, replies trickled in almost instantly, and they weren't what she expected. "Karen, we've seen the receipts. Stop lying. If anyone's dividing us, it's you. We're tired of the threats. Enough is enough." Her cheeks burned as she slammed her laptop shut. The walls of her empire were caving in. Tensions at home. Back at Marcus's house, Alana watched her father sort through documents. "Dad, do you ever get tired of fighting?" she asked quietly. Marcus paused, looking at his daughter's tired eyes. She was only 16, but she had seen too much already. "Yeah," he admitted, "but some fights are worth it. This isn't just about me. It's about what kind of community we live in, what kind of future you grow up in." Alana nodded slowly. "Then let's win it." Her quiet determination reminded him of her late mother. Strong, grounded, unwilling to back down from injustice. It fueled him. A surprise visit. The next afternoon, Marcus opened his door to find two men in suits. County investigators. "Commander Wright," one said, flashing a badge. "We wanted to update you. The HOA's financials confirmed significant discrepancies. Thousands in fines never deposited into HOA accounts. Mrs. Green personally authorized withdrawals with no paper trail. Marcus exhaled slowly. So what's next? An audit, a public hearing, and if necessary, charges. The words carried weight. Charges. It was no longer speculation. Karen was standing on the edge of legal collapse. But Marcus knew something else. When people like Karen felt cornered, they lashed out. And he had no illusions that she would go quietly. The neighborhood meeting. A week later, the HOA called a mandatory community meeting. Word spread fast. This was it. The showdown. The clubhouse was packed wall to wall. Neighbors filled every chair, stood along the walls, even spilled into the hallway. The air buzzed with nervous anticipation. Karen sat at the head table, pearls tight around her neck, gavel clutched in white-knuckled fingers. Her eyes darted nervously, but she plastered on a brittle smile. Marcus entered, carrying his thick folder. He didn't need to raise his voice. His presence alone shifted the air. Karen banged the gavel. This meeting is to address slanderous attacks made against your whole leadership. Lies are being spread to destabilize our community. Groans rippled through the crowd. Phones were already out, recording. Marcus stepped forward. Or maybe, he said evenly. This meeting is about finally telling the truth, laying out the case. He laid down his folder and began pulling out documents. One by one, he held them up. Violation letters, bank statements, testimonies. Here's a $900 fine for a birthday party. The money never reached HOA accounts. Here's $1,200 for shutter paint. No receipts, no deposits. Here's a foreclosure threat against the Harrisons over a driveway crack. Gasps and murmurs filled the room. Neighbors nodded, recognizing their own stories reflected in others. Karen's voice cracked as she tried to interrupt. Those are isolated. They're not isolated, Marcus cut in. They're a pattern of intimidation, false violations, and missing funds. Thousands of dollars siphoned off, and the county is already investigating. He placed the final paper on the table. Mrs. Green didn't just harass her neighbors. She stole from them. The room erupted. People shouted, some in disbelief, others in anger. Phones recorded every second. The boiling point. Karen shot to her feet, voice shrieking. This is a witch hunt. He's lying. He's manipulating you all because you're too weak to stand up for yourselves. But her words rang hollow. Her son, Nathan, sat near the back, eyes downcast. For the first time, he looked ashamed, not proud. Neighbors shouted back, "We're done with your lies, Karen. You don't speak for us anymore. Step down." The gavel in her hand trembled. She banged it desperately, but the sound was drowned out by the voices of the people she once controlled. And Marcus knew the real confrontation had arrived. The whole clubhouse had turned into a powder keg. Neighbors shouted over each other. Phones flashed. Voices rose with years of pent-up frustration finally breaking free. Karen's gavel banged uselessly against the wood, her shrill commands drowned out by the roar of her community. "Order," she screeched, sweat shining at her temples. "This is my meeting. I am still your whole chair." But the words no longer carried weight. For years, she had ruled with fear. Now, the fear was gone. At the center of it all, Marcus stood tall, arms folded, letting the chaos swirl around him. He didn't have to shout. His silence was power enough. Finally, Karen slammed her gavel so hard it cracked against the desk. "Enough!" she screamed. Her eyes darted around wildly before locking on Marcus. You think you can humiliate me, destroy everything I built? Not in my neighborhood." Her voice broke into a frantic pitch. "You're not one of us. You never will be." The room went still. The words hung in the air like poison. Every neighbor, every phone, every pair of eyes zeroed in on her. It was the mask slipping, the truth laid bare. This was never about groceries, never about rules. It was about power and prejudice. The final move. Marcus stepped forward, his voice low but sharp enough to cut glass. You've said a lot tonight, Mrs. Green. But what you just said, that's the truth, isn't it? This was never about lawn height or shutters. It's about who you think belongs here. Karen's jaw worked, but no sound came. Her face flushed, and her hands trembled on the broken gavel. You weaponized your position, Marcus continued. You lied to police. You threatened families. You stole money. And now, when faced with the truth, you show your real colors. He pulled a final sheet of paper from his folder, the county auditor's preliminary report. He held it high so the cameras could catch it. This isn't just my word. This is the county's. They found funds missing from HOA accounts. Transactions signed by your name. Gasps erupted through the room. People surged forward, craning to see. Someone shouted, "Thief!" Another yelled, "Resign!" Karen's hands clutched the edge of the table. That's fabricated. It's all lies. But the crowd wasn't with her anymore. The collapse. Suddenly, Nathan, her son, stood up in the back. His young voice cracked but carried across the room. "Mom, stop." Karen whipped her head around, stunned. "Nathan, stop lying," the boy shouted, tears welling in his eyes. "You made me say things that weren't true. You made me lie about Commander Wright. He didn't do anything to us. You just wanted to make him look bad." The room gasped. Phones zoomed in on the boy's trembling figure. "Mom, you always do this," he cried. "You act like you're protecting me, but you're just protecting yourself." Karen's face crumpled. For a second, the ironclad chairwoman looked small, cornered, and utterly defeated. "Nathan, please," she whispered. But the boy shook his head, sat back down, and covered his face with his hands. The silence that followed was heavier than any shouting. The takedown, Marcus's voice, broke the silence. Calm, but commanding. "Neighbors, I think the time has come. Mrs. Green has abused her position for too long. Tonight, you have the power to make a choice. You can stand for fairness, or you can stand for fear. Which will it be?" The room erupted. "Vote. Vote her out." Hands shot up, nearly unanimous. A tidal wave of voices shouted, "Remove her. She's done. Step down." Karen shook her head frantically, backing away from the table. "No, you can't do this to me. I am Willow Creek." But even the board members she once controlled refused to look at her. One quietly announced, "Effective immediately, Karen Green is removed as HOA chair pending investigation." Phones captured every second. Her empire crumbled in front of her eyes. The final blow. As Karen stood trembling, Marcus leaned closer, his voice low enough for only her to hear. "You thought calling the police would put me in cuffs. Instead, it put you in the spotlight. You thought you could use power to silence me. But power built on lies always falls." Karen's eyes burned with tears. "You'll regret this," she hissed. Marcus shook his head. "No, you'll regret what you did to this neighborhood. And to your own son." The walkout. The meeting ended not with Karen's gavel, but with the sound of her neighbors turning their backs. People filed out, shaking their heads, some openly jeering, others filming as she shrank behind the table. Karen stayed frozen, hands limp at her sides, as her son slipped out the back quietly, unwilling to face her. Meanwhile, Marcus walked out into the warm night air, surrounded by nods, handshakes, and murmured thanks. For the first time since moving into Willow Creek, he felt the neighborhood wasn't just a set of manicured lawns. It was people ready to stand up. And though he'd won the night, Marcus knew the story wasn't over. Karen still faced investigators. The missing funds still needed to be accounted for. And Nathan, the boy caught in the crossfire. He weighed heavy on Marcus's mind. Because justice wasn't just about punishment. It was about healing. The next morning, Willow Creek Estates was buzzing like never before. The clubhouse confrontation had spread across every phone, every group chat, every social media page. Clips of Karen's meltdown were shared hundreds of times. The most viral caption reading, "How Karen calls cops on her neighbor. Turns out, he's a police commander." Then this happened. The video had millions of views by breakfast. For Marcus, the attention was a double-edged sword. At the local diner, people whispered when he walked in, offering quiet nods of respect. Strangers clapped him on the shoulder, saying things like, "About time someone stood up to her." But he also felt the weight of eyes watching, dissecting, waiting to see what he'd do next. At home, Alana scrolled through her phone. "Dad, you're a meme now," she said, half grinning. Look, on the screen was a photo of Marcus holding the grocery bags, captioned, "When Karen calls the cops, but you are the cops." Marcus chuckled softly, shaking his head. Internet never misses, but beneath the humor, he knew the fight wasn't over. Viral videos could expose lies, but they didn't heal communities. They didn't repair broken trust. And they didn't undo years of fear Karen had left behind. Karen's fallout. Across town, Karen Green sat alone in her living room, curtains drawn tight. The blinds filtered streaks of gray morning light across her face. But she looked older now, her authority stripped away. Her phone buzzed endlessly. Texts from board members cutting ties. Emails from county auditors requesting documents. Reporters camped outside her driveway hoping for a statement. She ignored them all. The one voice she wanted to hear was silent. Her son Nathan. He hadn't come home after the meeting. Instead, he'd spent the night at a neighbor's house, refusing to answer her calls. The shame of his public outburst still cut through her pride like a blade. For the first time in years, Karen realized the whole boardroom wasn't her stage anymore. She had lost her crown and her kingdom. But what haunted her most wasn't the board's betrayal or the threat of charges. It was the sound of her own son's voice, trembling as he begged her to stop lying. The neighborhood awakens. At Willow Creek, something remarkable happened in the days following Karen's removal. The air felt lighter. Neighbors who had once kept to themselves began waving across driveways, knocking on each other's doors. Kids played in the cul-de-sac without fear of fines for noise violations. One man even left his trash cans out overnight on purpose, just because he could. A new board was formed, made up of volunteers who promised transparency. Meetings were open door, live streamed for accountability. Instead of threatening letters, residents received friendly reminders and offers to help. Mrs. Delgado stopped Marcus on his morning jog. "Commander, you don't know what you've done for us. We can finally breathe again." Marcus smiled humbly. "I didn't do it alone. You all stood up." But deep down, he knew his role mattered. Sometimes, it took someone willing to stare down intimidation to spark change. Marcus and Nathan. One afternoon, as Marcus returned from work, he found a figure sitting on his porch steps. It was Nathan, Karen's son. His baseball cap was pulled low, and his sneakers scuffed nervously against the concrete. Marcus paused, then walked over. "Hey, son." Nathan glanced up, eyes red. "Can I talk to you?" "Of course." They sat together on the porch. The cicadas hummed, and for a moment, the silence carried more weight than words. Finally, Nathan spoke. "I'm sorry," he whispered, "for what my mom did, or what I did. I shouldn't have asked for your groceries. I just wanted to impress her. She always said she ran this place, and I thought if I listened, she'd be proud of me." Marcus sighed, resting a hand on the boy's shoulder. "Listen, Nathan, wanting your mom's approval isn't wrong, but she put you in a bad spot. That's not on you." Nathan's voice cracked. "Everyone at school's calling me Karen's kid. They hate us. I hate us." Marcus's heart tightened. He saw a boy trapped in the fallout of his mother's pride. "You're not your mom's mistakes. You get to choose the kind of man you want to be." And from what I saw the other night, speaking up in front of everyone, that took guts. Nathan looked at him, eyes glistening. "You really think so?" Marcus nodded. "I know so. And if you ever need someone to talk to, you know where I live." For the first time, Nathan smiled faintly. The investigation. Meanwhile, the county moved swiftly. Auditors confirmed tens of thousands of dollars missing from HOA accounts. Some withdrawals were disguised as landscaping improvements that never happened. Others as legal fees with no invoices. Within weeks, Karen was served with official notice, charges of embezzlement and misuse of authority. The news hit local headlines. HOA chair accused of stealing thousands in fines, investigation sparked by police commander neighbor. The community buzzed again. Some pitied her, others relished her downfall. But nearly everyone agreed. Accountability had finally come to Willow Creek. A shift in Marcus. For Marcus, the whirlwind of events forced reflection. He had spent his career enforcing laws, protecting order. But this was different. This was about dignity, about neighbors reclaiming their voices. One evening, sitting on the porch with Alana, he admitted, "You know, I thought moving here was about finding peace. But maybe it was about helping others find theirs too." Alana leaned against him. "You did that, Dad. You didn't just buy groceries. You bought freedom for this whole street." Marcus chuckled softly, pulling her close. Groceries never cost this much before. Karen's loneliness. Back in her house, Karen sat at her dining table, staring at stacks of letters, legal notices, board resignation forms, bills. Her once proud voice was gone, reduced to whispers only she could hear. "I just wanted respect. I just wanted control." But respect built on fear was never respect at all. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from Nathan. "I'm staying at a friend's for now. I need space." Karen's eyes welled with tears. For the first time, she realized she hadn't just lost her position. She had lost the one person she thought she was protecting. Community. Healing. On Saturday, the new HOA hosted a block party. For the first time in years, laughter echoed through Willow Creek without suspicion. Grills smoked, kids ran barefoot. Neighbors clinked glasses in relief. Marcus watched from his lawn chair, plate of barbecue in his lap, as Nathan joined a group of kids in a game of basketball. The boy glanced at him once, gave a small nod, then ran back into the game. It was a small gesture, but it spoke volumes. For Marcus, this was the true victory. Not the headlines, not the board's collapse, not even Karen's investigation. It was the sight of a neighborhood rediscovering joy, free from fear. The county courthouse loomed tall against the pale morning sky. Its marble steps had seen decades of trials. But on this day, it was Karen Green's turn to face justice. She walked up those steps alone. No neighbors at her side. No board members to flank her. Just the clicking of her heels echoing in the hushed air, and the cold stares of the crowd gathered outside. Reporters called her name, cameras flashing. "Mrs. Green, do you deny the charges? Did you embezzle whole funds? How much money is missing?" Karen kept her chin high, but her eyes flicked nervously. Gone were the days of wielding power with a clipboard and a gavel. Now, the weight of her actions dragged heavy on her shoulders. Nathan's choice. Nathan didn't come to the courthouse. Instead, he sat at the community park, hunched over a basketball. His young hands turned it over and over as if searching for answers. Marcus found him there. He'd left work early, sensing the boy needed someone. "You didn't want to be there?" Marcus asked gently. Nathan shook his head. "She lied for so long. About everything. I don't even know who she is anymore." Marcus sat beside him on the bench. "She's still your mom, but she made mistakes. Big ones. And now, she has to face them." Nathan's voice cracked. "What about me? Everyone looks at me like I'm her shadow. Like I'm just gonna turn out the same." Marcus placed a steady hand on his shoulder. "You're not defined by her choices. You proved that the night you stood up and told the truth. That took more courage than most adults ever show." Nathan looked up, eyes searching Marcus's face. "Do you think I could ever be like you? Someone people respect, not fear?" Marcus smiled softly. "You've already started, son. Just keep telling the truth. Keep doing what's right, even when it's hard. That's all it takes." For the first time in weeks, Nathan's shoulders straightened. The boy who once hid behind his mother's commands was beginning to find his own path. The neighbors healed. Life in Willow Creek shifted steadily towards something brighter. With Karen gone, the new HOA board rolled out reforms. No more surprise fines. Instead, homeowners received friendly notices and time to fix issues. Every dollar collected was transparently logged and published monthly. Community meetings became open forums, with potluck dinners afterward that encouraged fellowship instead of fear. The Delgado family threw the first neighborhood cookout in years. Mr. Khan organized a garden club. The Harrisons painted a mural on the side of the clubhouse, transforming a symbol of intimidation into one of pride. People smiled more, doors opened. Conversations lasted longer than polite nods. It was as if the entire neighborhood had exhaled after years of holding its breath. Marcus's reflection. One quiet evening, Marcus sat on his porch with Alana. Fireflies dotted the yard, and laughter from a block party drifted through the air. "You notice how different it feels?" Alana asked. Marcus nodded. Like the place finally came alive. Alana smirked. "Maybe you should run for co-chair." Marcus laughed, shaking his head. "No, thank you. I fight enough battles at work. Here, I just want to be dad." But privately, he couldn't ignore the pride swelling in his chest. He hadn't just survived Karen's vendetta. He had helped free an entire neighborhood from her grip. Karen's reckoning. Back in the courthouse, Karen sat at the defense table, hands clasped tightly, her pearls traded for a plain suit. The charges were read aloud. Misappropriation of funds, misuse of authority, filing false police reports. Each word chipped away at the image she had once projected. She pled not guilty, but the evidence, bank statements, testimony, video recordings, painted a damning picture. When Nathan's name was mentioned as a potential witness, Karen's composure cracked. Tears welled in her eyes. She whispered to her attorney, "Not my son. Please, not my son." But the truth was clear. The boy she had used as a pawn was no longer her shield. He had chosen a different path, one she couldn't control. Nathan stepped forward. Weeks later, Marcus drove Nathan to basketball practice. The boy had joined a local youth league, encouraged by friends and neighbors who saw him not as Karen's kid, but as a kid who had spoken truth when it mattered most. On the court, Nathan dribbled with focus, his laughter mixing with the squeak of sneakers. For once, he wasn't looking over his shoulder. As Marcus watched from the bleachers, he realized something important. Nathan wasn't just healing, he was growing. The boy had been forged in the fire of his mother's downfall, but instead of breaking, he was becoming stronger. Closure for the community. At the next HOA gathering, the new board surprised Marcus with a framed certificate. "Commander Wright," the president announced, "on behalf of Willow Creek Estates, we want to thank you for your courage, leadership, and integrity. Without you, we would still be living under fear. Now, we're living in freedom." Applause filled the clubhouse. Marcus accepted the plaque humbly, glancing at Alana and the crowd. She beamed with pride. For Marcus, the honor wasn't about recognition. It was about the lesson the community had learned. Silence enables abuse, but unity can end it. Karen's solitude. In her small, dimly lit living room, Karen sat alone, the once bustling house now quiet. Nathan's laughter no longer echoed down the hall. The neighbors she once ruled ignored her when she passed.